Before dawn, a broom passes over stone. A monk descends the eastern staircase of Angkor Wat. He has no audience. He does not know the exact date this stone was carved. He knows he will return tomorrow. This is the story of an empire that ended, and the men who kept sweeping. At dawn on a January morning in 1860, a 33-year-old Frenchman steps off a canoe at the edge of the Tonle Sap lake. He has been ill for weeks. He will be dead within 19 months. He carries a notebook, a daguerreotype camera that the tropical humidity will destroy within a week, and a copy of a book by another Frenchman who was here 10 years before him. His name is Henri Mouhot. The world will remember him as the man who rediscovered Angkor. He did not rediscover it. It had never been lost. The men who knew that did not write travel books. How does a city the size of medieval Paris vanish from European memory? Who keeps a temple standing when the kings who built it are gone for 6 centuries? And what do you call the people who carry a civilization across time without ever appearing in the books that get written about them? The Khmer Empire fell in 1431 to a 7-month Siamese siege. Its capital was abandoned by its court. Its irrigation system, which had once fed nearly 1 million people, was breaking down under climate stress that we can now read in the tree rings of Vietnamese cypress. But Angkor Wat, the great temple at the heart of the city, was never empty. For more than 400 years before Mouhot's arrival, Theravada monks lived there. They swept its floors, they kept its altars, they copied its texts onto palm leaves and carried them through monsoon seasons that came late and came hard. The last carved inscription inside the temple is from 1747. It records the donation of a small stupa by a court official whose grandchildren would have been alive on the morning Mouhot walked in. This is the story of the empire that built one of the largest religious monuments on earth and lost the political power to defend it, and was misremembered for 2 centuries afterward as a lost civilization that needed to be found again. It is also the story of the people who never stopped sweeping. We begin 1,000 years before Mouhot was born, in a canoe on a lake that runs backwards once a year. A fisherman stands in a narrow wooden canoe on the Tonle Sap lake. It is October. The sun is low and yellow. He is naked from the waist up. A length of cotton wrapped around his legs serves as his only clothing. In his hands, a circular casting net, weighted at the edges with small stones. He swings it once, twice, and lets it fly. The net opens in the air like a flower and lands flat on the brown water. He pulls. The weight comes up slowly, 2 fish, then 4, then 7, small. He empties them into the bottom of the canoe and casts again. He has been doing this since he was 8 years old. His father did it before him. The lake is full this month because the lake runs backwards. For most of the year, the Tonle Sap River drains the lake into the Mekong. But every monsoon, the Mekong rises so high that it pushes its tributary into reverse. The Tonle Sap River runs north for 4 months. The lake swells to 5 times its dry season size. Fish rise with the water. By October, when the flood begins to retreat, the lake is the largest source of freshwater fish in Southeast Asia. This is the basis of everything that will be built here. Not the temples, not the kings, not the inscriptions in Sanskrit on the walls of stone galleries. The fish. A civilization is rising in this delta. The descendants of 2 earlier kingdoms, Funan and Chenla, who learned to read the lake and to plant rice on the receding shorelines, they will call themselves Khmer. The land they will call Shruk Khmer. In a generation, a king will stand on a mountain to the north and declare himself the Lord of the world. He will need feeding. The lake will feed him. The fisherman casts again. The light moves across the water. A man of middle years stands at the top of Mount Kulin in the cool air of high altitude. It is a morning in the year 802. He wears white ceremonial robes. His long hair is bound up behind his head. The platform of stone beneath his feet was carved this week. Across from him stands an Indian Brahmin holding the 4 ritual objects: bell, conch, fire, and water. The air at this elevation is several degrees cooler than the heat that rises from the plain below. That is why the priest chose this place. The bronze bell rings once into the silence. The Brahmin begins the Sanskrit formula. The man's name is Suryavarman II. He was raised, partly, in the court of the Sailendra kings of Java. He has spent 20 years building alliances among scattered Khmer factions in the lowlands. The ceremony that is about to happen will declare him Chakravartin, universal monarch, and will free the Khmer lands from any obligation to the Javanese sovereign. The Brahmin pours water from a bronze vessel over Suryavarman's head. The formula declares him not just king, but the earthly manifestation of Shiva. The kingdom that begins this morning will be called by historians the Khmer Empire. It will last 629 years. What we know of this ceremony comes from an inscription carved 250 years later at a temple called Stok Kok Tom by a priestly family who served Suryavarman's line. The text of that inscription is in Sanskrit. The names are in Khmer. The theology is from India by way of Java. This is how Khmer civilization will work: a synthesis, never a copy. The bell rings again. The platform on Mount Kulin will be visited by pilgrims for the next 1,000 years. Suryavarman descends the mountain on foot. The valley below is hot and green and full of rice. Yasovarman I stands on a low hill in the heat of noon. The year is around 893. He has been king for 4 years. Below him, on the plain north of the Tonle Sap lake, 10,000 laborers are digging. The line of the excavation runs east-west, perfectly straight, for 7 kilometers. It will be a reservoir, what the Khmer call a barrage. When it is filled, it will hold 50 million cubic meters of water. He has named it the Yasodhara after himself. The city he is founding around it will also be called after himself, Yasodharapura, the city of Yasovarman. It is the second of 3 capitals. His grandfather built the first one to the southeast, at a place now called Roluos. In a few centuries, another king will build a third on top of this one and call it Angkor Thom. But the place itself, the location of this hill, this barrage, this dust, will be the heart of Khmer civilization for the next 500 years. We call it Angkor. The sound of 10,000 iron hoes striking earth is not rhythmic, it is constant. The dust rises in a brown haze above the excavation and settles on Yasovarman's white robes. His advisor stands 2 paces behind him, holding a parasol of palm leaves, which makes no difference. The reservoir will do 2 things at once. It will store the floodwater of the monsoon so that rice can be grown 3 seasons a year instead of 1. And it will mirror, in physical form, the cosmic ocean that surrounds Mount Meru in the Hindu vision of the universe. A barrage is engineering. It is also theology. The Khmer will not separate the two for the next 600 years. The king turns and walks back toward his tent. The hose keep falling. The hill behind him will not have a name. A Brahmin stands inside the inner sanctuary of a brick temple in the city of Hariharalaya, southeast of Angkor. The year is around 980. He holds a bronze vessel filled with milk and water from the Ganges, which was carried here by a pilgrim 3 years ago. 2 oil lamps burn on the floor. The room smells of burning camphor. In front of him, kneeling on a low platform in royal robes, is the man who will be consecrated king. The Brahmin tilts the vessel. The liquid pours warm over the king's head and runs down his neck. The king does not move. The Sanskrit formulas are spoken slowly. Between each line, there is a long silence, broken only by the slow drip of water onto stone. The Brahmin is declaring that this man is no longer simply a man. He is now the earthly form of Shiva. His decisions will not be the decisions of a person. They will be the decisions of a god. This is the doctrine called Devaraja, the God King. It came to the Khmer from India through Java in the time of Suryavarman II, and it will define the shape of Khmer politics for the next 400 years. Every major king will undergo this ceremony. Every major king will build a temple mountain whose central tower represents Mount Meru, the home of the gods. The king and the temple and the cosmos are versions of the same thing. The Brahmin sets down the empty vessel. The 2 languages of this kingdom are now established: Sanskrit for the gods, Khmer for the administration. Sanskrit is read aloud at ceremonies and carved on the walls of temples. Khmer is what tax collectors speak. Both will appear side by side on the same stone. The new king rises. The lamps are still burning. Outside, a city is waiting to be told that it now has a god. An engineer stands on a bamboo platform above a freshly cut stone sluice gate. He is around 50, thin, sun-darkened, in a sampat and a cotton turban. Below him, water has just begun to flow. The sound is the first thing. A low, continuous hiss, deeper than a stream, steadier than wind, as the water spills through the gate and into the new canal. He grips the bamboo rail. It is rough under his palm. His sampat is damp with sweat. To the east, far across the plain, the older reservoir, the one finished 150 years ago, already mirrors the noon sky. He is standing on the edge of what will be called the West Baray. When it is full, it will be 8 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide and will hold 50 million cubic meters of water. Together with its twin to the east, it will feed a network of canals that radiate across the entire floodplain. Rice fields draw from those canals. The fields produce 2 harvests a year, sometimes 3. The city those harvests support will eventually be the largest urban settlement on Earth. We did not know this for a long time. Maps drawn in the 20th century showed Angkor as a cluster of stone temples in the jungle. The full system became visible only in 2012 when an Australian-led team flew LiDAR over the forest and stripped the canopy away in software. What they saw was a city, streets, suburbs, embankments, water channels, covering 1,000 square kilometers. The engineer does not know this. He knows that the gate must hold, that the canal must flow, that the rice must come up. He knows that the system depends on the monsoon arriving when it should. He knows that if the monsoon shifts, the system will not bend, it will break. He climbs down from the platform. The water keeps moving. A stone cutter kneels on a bamboo scaffold 4 meters above the ground. It is January, sometime around 1140. He is bare-chested in a short sampat, dust on his arms. In his right hand a chisel, in his left a mallet. He is cutting a deva, a celestial being, into a wall of fresh sandstone, and he has done about 16 so far this month. The strikes are not rhythmic. Each one is calculated. He adjusts the angle of the chisel, taps twice, blows the dust away, adjusts again. The stone is gray-pink, the color of the iron-rich sandstone of Mount Kulin, 40 kilometers away. It was floated down here on a canal system specifically dug for the purpose of moving rock. What he is cutting is part of a scene called the Churning of the Sea of Milk. 88 devas on one side, 92 asuras on the other, pulling the serpent Vasuki wrapped around Mount Mandara to churn the ocean and produce the elixir of immortality. The whole panel will run for 49 meters along the eastern gallery. He will probably not live to see it finished. The temple this wall belongs to has been under construction for around 20 years. It will take another 15. When it is done, it will cover an area larger than the Vatican. Its 5 central towers will form the quincunx pattern of Mount Meru, the mountain at the center of the Hindu universe. Its outer moat, 200 meters wide, will represent the cosmic ocean. The king who ordered it built is named Suryavarman II. He is 46 years old. He has fought wars on 3 frontiers and stabilized none of them. He has dedicated this temple to Vishnu and quietly oriented it to the west, the direction of the dead, so that he can be buried inside it. The stonecutter does not know any of that. He knows the next strike. The pink dust drifts down. An old king dictates to a scribe in a side chamber of the royal palace at Angkor Thom. He is around 60. He sits cross-legged on a low platform, eyes half closed in the meditation posture of a bodhisattva. The lamp in the corner burns coconut oil. The scribe presses a bronze stylus into a sheet of soft copper, which will be the mold for the inscription that will be carved into stone. His name is Jayavarman VII. He is the only Khmer king whose face we have, because he had statues made of himself in a posture of compassion, smiling slightly, eyes closed. They are still in the museums of Phnom Penh, Assur, and Paris. Behind him, on the altar, is an image of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of mercy. Not Vishnu, not Shiva. The state religion of the Khmer Empire has changed in his lifetime, from Hinduism to Mahayana Buddhism, and this man is the reason. He came to the throne at 50 after the Cham sacked Angkor in 1177. He spent the rest of his reign rebuilding. Angkor Thom, the great walled city, 9 square kilometers, surrounded by a moat. The Bayon, with its more than 200 carved stone faces gazing in every direction. Ta Prohm, Preah Khan, Banteik Day. He built more in 37 years than any previous Khmer king had built in their entire reign. He also built 102 hospitals. He built 121 rest houses along the royal roads so that pilgrims and merchants and tax collectors could sleep under roofs. The inscription he is dictating today, the one that will be carved at Preah Khan and survive 900 years, contains a line that scholars still translate into many languages. He suffered from the diseases of his subjects more than from his own, for it is the pain of the people that makes the pain of kings, and not their own pain. The scribe finishes the line. Jayavarman opens his eyes. The lamp flickers. The next king will not be like him. A farmer walks out onto the dry bed of the West Baray at midday in June. It is around 1345. The monsoon should have begun 3 weeks ago. It has not. He is in his 30s, in a torn sampot, barefoot. The ground beneath his soles is so hot it pulses upward through the skin. The clay has cracked into hexagonal plates, each one the size of his hand. Behind him, far back from where he is standing, is the line where the water used to begin. It has retreated more than a kilometer. Ahead of him, on the far side of the empty basin, the 5 towers of Angkor Wat are still intact, but the outer galleries are beginning to show vegetation pushing in through the joints of the stone. What is missing is the sound. For 3 centuries, this plain has hummed with the noise of moving water, sluices opening, canals filling, paddies draining. The hum is gone. He stands in the silence and tastes dust. 700 years later, in 2010, a team led by the climatologist Brendan Buckley will publish a paper in the Journal of the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. They will have spent years coring Phocaena cypress trees in the highlands of central Vietnam, trees old enough to remember the 14th century in their rings. The rings will tell them, year by year, how wet or dry the monsoon was for 759 years. What the rings will show is 2 megadroughts, one in the middle of the 14th century, one in the early 15th. The driest single year was 1403. Between the droughts, monsoons that came too hard and damaged the canals from the other direction. The farmer in 1345 does not know this. He knows the rice did not come up. He knows the canal upstream is empty. He knows his children are hungry and that the king's officials in the city will not be able to help because their granaries depend on the same fields his does. The system did not break in 1 year. It bent and bent again and could no longer hold the weight it was built to hold. He walks back across the cracked basin. The towers do not move. A Chinese diplomat in his early 30s walks on foot through the north gate of Angkor Thom. It is August of 1296. He wears a long blue traveling tunic and a round felt cap. Beside him walks a Khmer interpreter. The gate is a tunnel of stone 20 meters long, cut beneath one of the towers of 4 giant faces that crown the wall. The temperature drops several degrees inside the tunnel. His own footsteps come back to him from the walls. When he emerges on the other side, he is inside the city, paved streets, palaces with roofs of yellow lead tile, markets in full operation and women buying and selling, a long avenue lined with merchant houses leading toward the royal compound, the smell of burning incense drifting out of the large houses. He will note that this is done in the morning to clear the air. His name is Zhou Dagwan. He has come on an embassy from Temür Khan, the grandson of Kublai Khan, ruler of the Yuan dynasty. He will stay for 11 months until July of 1297 at the court of King Suryavarman III. He will return to China and, over the next 15 years, write down everything he remembers in a short book called Genla Feng Tuji, Customs of Cambodia. It will be the only surviving first-person description of Imperial Angkor at its height. Without him, we would know the temples, but not the city. He will tell us about the women selling fish in the markets, about the king processing through the streets on a golden palanquin, about the way houses are built on stilts because of the monsoon, about the language, the festivals, the food. The Angkor he describes is functioning. It has perhaps 800,000 people. It has wealth. It has order. The roof tiles of the palace are of yellow lead. The columns and beams within are all painted red, carved with figures of Buddhas. 135 years later, the court will no longer be there. Zhou follows his interpreter deeper into the city. The smell of incense is everywhere. Pause for a moment. Look at where we are. 5 centuries have passed since a man named Suryavarman II stood on a mountain and declared himself the king of the world. A kingdom rose from the rice plains of the lower Mekong. It built one of the largest temples on earth, oriented to a Hindu cosmos, dedicated to a god named Vishnu. It built a city of hydraulic engineering on a scale that no European city would match until the 18th century. It changed its state religion twice, Hindu, then Mahayana Buddhist, without civil war. It received a Chinese diplomat who described it as functioning, ordered, and rich. And now, in the mid-14th century, the rain is not coming when it should. The reservoirs are low, the fields are thin. The kings after Suryavarman VII have been weaker, and the neighbors have been watching. To the west, the city of Ayutthaya is rising. It is Thai, it is Buddhist, it is hungry, organized, and willing to come east. What follows in the next chapter is a siege of 7 months in the year 1431. The king who sits inside the walls when it begins is named Ponheya Yat. He has a court, a treasury, a library of palm leaf manuscripts going back generations, and a decision to make. Watch what he chooses to carry. We will need it again. A king crouches beside a teak chest in a side room of the royal palace at Angkor Thom. It is night. A single oil lamp burns on the low table beside him. He is not wearing his crown. He is not wearing the gold. He is in a plain cotton sampot and an undershirt, and his hands are sorting through bundles of palm leaf manuscripts tied with silk cord. The leaves are dry and light. Each bundle is the size of a small book. The wax of the royal seals he applied himself in better years will have to be broken now to check what is inside. He breaks them. He decides what to take. Some of these manuscripts are ritual. Some are administrative. Some are the texts the Buddhist Sangha will need for continuity. The Tipitaka in Pali, copied generation after generation in the monasteries of his city. Most of them will have to be left behind. The siege has gone on for 7 months. The granaries of the palace are empty. The siege towers of the Siamese army, under their king Boromarashathirat II, have already broken the outer wall at one point. The siege is the third Ayutthayan assault on Angkor in 78 years. The first was in 1353, the second in 1370. This is the one that will end it. Ponheya Yat is a man of middle years. He has been king for some time. He has decided in this room, in this lamplight, that the court will leave the city. He will take it first to Basan, a place at the confluence of the rivers to the south, then to a smaller settlement at a place called Chaktomuk, which will eventually be renamed Phnom Penh. What he is carrying out of the palace tonight is not a treasure of gold. It is a treasury of texts. He will leave the temple standing because he has no choice. He will leave the city because he cannot defend it. He will leave most of the library because there is not enough room in the carts. But he will not leave the monks. He cannot order them to come, and he does not. They are not part of the court. They live in the monasteries inside and around Angkor Wat, and their relationship to the temple is not political. It is something older and slower than politics. When the king and his retinue leave the city in the last weeks of 1431, the monks stay. Ponheya Yat closes the chest. He pushes the wax seals to one side of the table. He stands up. Outside, far across the city, the sound of the Siamese camp is steady. Drums, voices, the noise of an army that has finished waiting. He blows out the lamp. A monk in a saffron robe sweeps the central floor of the second level of Angkor Wat in the early light of a dry season morning. It is around 1450. He is barefoot. His head is shaved. The broom is palm fiber, the bristles uneven, and it makes a softer sound on stone that is wet with dew than on stone that is dry. A generation has passed since the court left. The monk was a child then. He does not remember Ponhayayat. He remembers his teacher, who remembered his teacher, who remembered the year that the Siamese came. Inside the gallery to his left, the carved figures of the Hindu cosmos are still on the walls. Vishnu reclining on the serpent of eternity, the Asuras pulling at the great churning serpent, the army of Suryavarman processing toward a war that ended 3 centuries ago. Nothing has been chipped away. The figures are not enemies. The new altar, set into the side gallery, is Buddhist. A yellow cloth is draped over the old central image. Fresh lotus flowers were placed there last evening by a woman from the village. Rice and fruit beside them. The monk is not restoring the temple. He is not preserving it. He is using it. The distinction is important. Restoration would imply that the temple had ceased to be itself. It did not. The kings left. The empire shrank. The political center moved south to Phnom Penh. But the temple was never a political object. It was a place where people came to offer flowers and rice, and where men in saffron robes sat on the floor and copied the Tipitaka onto palm leaves with metal styluses, and where the laity touched their foreheads to the ground in front of figures that meant different things in different centuries, but always meant something. The Khmer word for what the monks are doing is not a word for monument care. It is a word that means simply the everyday upkeep of a place where the Sangha lives. He finishes the corner of the floor. He moves to the next one. The sun comes up over the eastern wall and reaches the gallery and warms the stone under his bare feet. 3 centuries of this are coming. A Portuguese friar in his 40s stands at the western entrance of Angkor Wat. He is in a brown capuchin habit of heavy wool, sandals of leather, a cord knotted 3 times at his waist. He carries a small bound notebook of European paper, rare, imported, expensive. The midday tropical heat presses through the wool. He has not taken the habit off in 3 years of travel. Beside him stands a Theravada monk in a saffron robe. They cannot speak to each other. They communicate in gestures and in the few words of Khmer the friar has learned in his months in the country. His name is Antonio da Maddalena. He was born in Coimbra. He entered the monastery of Alcobaça in 1575, sailed to Goa in 1580, traveled overland through Siam, and arrived in the Khmer lands in 1583. He is the first European on record to walk into Angkor. The year is 1586. He writes nothing here. He looks and he counts. He paces the gallery of the churning of the Sea of Milk and tries to estimate its length. He notes the height of the central towers. He counts the moats. He counts the doorways. He has no frame of reference for what he is seeing. The Capuchin order in Portugal has nothing like this. The cathedrals of Coimbra and Lisbon have nothing like this. He decides, in a phrase that will reach Europe through someone else's hand, that this is the most beautiful, best served, and cleanest city in the world. 3 years later, sailing home, his ship, the Sao Tome, will founder off the coast of Natal in southern Africa. He will drown. The notes he made in his bound book will not survive. But the chronicler Diogo do Couto, who interviewed him in Goa, will write down what Maddalena said. Couto will fold the description into the 5th Decada da Ásia, drafted in 1586 and 1587. The Angkor section will be cut from the published version in 1612. The full manuscript will be lost. 361 years later, in 1947, a British scholar named Charles Boxer will find it. Madalena walks deeper into the temple. The monk follows him at a respectful distance. Neither of them knows what is happening to the writing. A Japanese pilgrim in his 60s presses the tip of a small knife against the stone wall of the Western Gallery of Angkor Wat. It is the year Khan-I 9, 1632 in the European calendar. He is wearing a traveling robe of dark cotton. He is sweating. He is concentrating. His name is Ukondafu Kazufusa. He has come overland from Edo through Siam, a journey of nearly 2 years, because he believes this temple is the Jetavana monastery in India where the Buddha taught. He is wrong. He does not know he is wrong. He carves a short text in vertical Japanese script into the sandstone, recording his pilgrimage in the 3rd year of Khan-I. The inscription is still there. You can see it today. It is one of 14 such Japanese inscriptions in Angkor Wat from the early 17th century, left by men who had crossed an ocean and a subcontinent in the wrong direction. Move forward a generation. The gallery is empty now. A monk sits cross-legged on a woven mat near the eastern stairway. He is in his 30s. In front of him, a small writing board. On the board, a fresh strip of palm leaf cut from a bundle, oiled and dried. In his right hand, a metal stylus. He is copying a passage from the Tipitaka in Pali, the Buddhist canon, for use in a monastery to the south. He has done this every dry season for 15 years. The metal makes a faint scratch on the surface of the leaf. He blows the dust away. 40 years later, deeper into the 18th century, a court official commissions a stupa to be installed in the 3rd gallery. The donation is recorded in an inscription in mixed Pali and Khmer on the wall behind it. The date carved into the stone is 1747. It is the last dated inscription that will ever be cut inside Angkor Wat. The court official's name is given in full. His grandchildren will live to be old. Now move forward another century. December of 1850, the dry season again. The temple is the same. The monks are different, but their robes are the same color. A French missionary priest in his late 20s sits on a stone block on the eastern staircase, writing in a notebook of European paper with a steel pen. He is in a simple cassock. His name is Charles-Émile Bouillevaux. He has been a missionary in Cambodia for several years and speaks the language reasonably well. He has come to Angkor on a personal pilgrimage of curiosity, and what he is writing in his notebook will become the first modern European prose description of the temple complex, published in Paris in 1858 in a book called Voyage dans l'Indochine. The book will sell almost no copies. The European public in 1858 is preoccupied with other things. The Crimean War has just ended. The Indian Mutiny has just been put down. France is preparing to formally enter Indochina the following year. A book by a missionary priest about old stones in the jungle does not catch fire, but one man reads it. A French naturalist working in London, financed by the British Royal Geographical Society, planning a 4th expedition to Southeast Asia. He marks 3 pages of Bouillevaux's text and slips the book into his luggage. The monk in the gallery sweeps. The Japanese pilgrim's inscription is still on the wall. The court official's stupa is still in the 3rd gallery. The Frenchman finishes his page and closes the notebook. The temple does what it has been doing for 400 years. None of them are saving it. None of them need to. A French naturalist in his early 30s walks behind 2 Khmer guides on a path leading away from the shore of the Tonle Sap. It is a morning in January of 1860. He is thin, with a pointed beard, in a white cotton shirt, light trousers, and a wide-brimmed hat. The leather camera bag at his hip is heavy. The daguerreotype inside it will be useless within a week. The lead guide is a young Khmer man named Friar, hired in Battambang 2 weeks ago. Friar pushes aside a curtain of giant ferns. Behind it, framed by the gap, the 5 central towers of Angkor Wat rise into the quincunx of Mount Meru. The Frenchman stops. He takes Bouillevo's book from his pocket. He has marked 3 pages. He looks up again. He writes in his journal that night that the scale of what he is seeing surpasses any description. His name is Henri Mouhot. He is 33 years old. He is financed by the British Royal Geographical Society and the Zoological Society of London. France has refused to fund him. He will spend 3 weeks at Angkor, sketching, transcribing inscriptions in Pali and Khmer, and writing. He will record in his journal that Father Bouillevo has already mentioned these monuments. He will not claim to have discovered anything. He will write a sentence that will travel through every popular account of Angkor for the next century. One of these temples, a rival to that of Solomon and erected by some ancient Michelangelo, might take an honorable place beside our most beautiful buildings. It is grander than anything left to us by Greece or Rome, and presents a sad contrast to the state of barbarism in which the nation is now plunged. The first half of the sentence will be quoted. The second half will not. 22 months later, on the night of the 10th of November, 1861, Moho is lying in a fiber hammock in a bamboo hut near the village of Naphon in northern Laos, near the Nam Khan River. He is 35 and looks 50. His skin is gray with malaria. Fry is beside him. The quinine ran out weeks ago. He writes one line in his journal in shaking French. Ayez pitié de moi, ô mon Dieu. Have pity on me, O my God. He dies a few hours later. Fry gathers the journals, the zoological specimens, the sketches of Angkor, and carries them downriver to Bangkok. From Bangkok, they go by ship to England. They reach Mouhot's widow, Annette Park Mouhot, in 1862. His brother Charles edits them. John Murray publishes them in London the same year. The French edition follows in 1863. The myth of the rediscovered city begins in print, and Fry disappears from the record. The Khmer Empire lasted 629 years. It began in 802, when a man named Suryavarman II was consecrated Chakravartin on a mountain north of the Tonle Sap. It built 3 capitals in the same place. It built one of the largest religious monuments on earth. It built a hydraulic system that fed nearly 1 million people in a city no European traveler would understand the scale of until the LiDAR surveys of 2012. It changed its state religion from Hindu to Mahayana Buddhist without civil war. It received a Chinese diplomat named Zhou Daguan in 1296, who described it as ordered and rich. 135 years later, in 1431, it fell to a 7-month Siamese siege under King Boromaratharat II of Ayutthaya. The last king inside the walls was named Ponhea Yat. He took his court south to a place at the meeting of the rivers that would later be called Phnom Penh. That is in most textbooks. What is not in most textbooks is what happened next. The court left. The political center moved south. But the monks at Angkor Wat, the Theravada Sangha that had taken over the temple in the generations before the siege, stayed. They swept the floors. They lit the lamps. They received offerings of rice and lotus from villagers whose names also do not appear in the record. They copied the Tipitaka onto palm leaves every dry season for 400 years. The last carved inscription inside the temple is from 1747. It records the donation of a small stupa by a court official whose name is given in full and whose grandchildren were alive on the morning Henri Mouhot walked in. When the Khmer Rouge took Cambodia in 1975, they executed roughly 5 of every 8 monks in the country over the next 4 years. The Sangha was almost extinguished. It was not. After 1979, the monks returned to Angkor Wat. The broom resumed. It is still moving this morning. Mouhot himself never claimed to have discovered Angkor. He said so in his journals when he wrote that Father Bouillevaux has already mentioned these monuments. He was a naturalist of method, not an adventurer. He dated Angkor to the Roman era, off by 1,000 years. He died of malaria in a bamboo hut in Laos at the age of 35. He never saw his own book. The myth of rediscovery was built after him. It was built by the editors who shaped his journals for an English-speaking market hungry for jungle ruins. It was built by the colonial administration that annexed Indochina in 1887 and needed a story in which Europe rescued an Asian past from neglect. This is the correction this channel exists to make. There is almost always a popularizer with a name and a death date. There is almost always a book, a paper read, to a society, a museum acquisition. And behind the popularizer, there is almost always a different kind of carrier, collective, unnamed, without a death scene. In other places this channel has visited, that carrier has worn other faces. The gesture has been the same. A hand passes the thread along without needing to be seen doing it. It is late afternoon at Angkor Wat. A monk in a saffron robe descends the eastern staircase. He passes the gallery of the churning of the Sea of Milk, which a stonecutter began around the year 1140. He passes a wall that bears, in mixed Pali and Khmer, an inscription dated 1747. He does not look at it. He has passed it before. He will pass it again tomorrow. The forest behind him never swallowed the temple. The temple was never alone. The thread did not pass through stone. It passed through hands. In the next video on this channel, the thread runs through a different community in a different corner of the world, a small island off the western coast of Scotland. The waves are cold. The wind comes from the Atlantic. A monk from Ireland named Columba lands there in the year 563. At nearly the same moment, on the other side of the world, the kingdoms of the lower Mekong are slowly merging into what will eventually become the Khmer Empire we have just walked through. For more than 2 centuries, the monks of that small island will copy and illuminate manuscripts of extraordinary beauty. They will pray. They will eat fish. They will train younger monks who will train younger monks after them. Then, on a night in 806, men in longships come up the western approach. 68 of the monks will not live to see morning. The survivors will gather what they can carry and run east into Ireland with a single, unfinished book under one arm. Where in Angkor the thread never broke, in this other place it will almost tear. Subscribe to The Long Thread. The next civilization is being prepared. Every empire ends. The thread does not.